Good evening, everyone. I hope all of you are keeping safe and healthy. I'm going to moderate the session today. Today, we have gathered here to decode one of the most important policies that will govern the future of all of us. That is the National Education Policy 2020. Through this session, we hope to understand some of its key aspects from our esteemed panelists. It is my great honor to introduce you to the eclectic mix of panelists we have today. They are all stalwarts in the field of education. I'll introduce them in the alphabetical order and do it very quickly, keeping the time in mind because we want to have a great discussion with all of them. First, I would like to welcome Mrs. Amrita Bharman, Deputy Director of Sunbeam Group of Educational Institutions, a passionate educator who believes that it is only through education that India's destiny can change. Mrs. Amrita Bharman has been associated with Sunbeam for over 27 years now. She did her MA and MBA from Kolkata. She has done her certificate course in educational leadership from Harvard Graduate School of Education. She, along with her team, have researched and worked on the Sunbeam precept, which guides the academic and co-curricular transactions at Sunbeam. She closely monitors the unpacking of the precept across 25 Sunbeam schools. She has traveled widely, both in India and abroad, and is in complete sync with happenings in the field of education all around. She is also the head of Round Square of Sunbeam School. She was part of the FICCI Arise delegation, which visited London in February 2019 to attend Learn It, and has also attended the Microsoft World Educators Conference E2 in Paris, besides being present as a panelist and expert in a host of national and international conferences. She has authored books for schools in English. She is also one of the prominent authors whose thoughts feature on a special compilation on joy and power of reading called Why I Love to Read, which features many prominent writers. A hearty welcome to the session, Mrs. Bharman. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Anirudh Gupta, CEO of the renowned DCM Group of Schools, which has offshoots in various parts of Northern India and is a leading organization serving the cause of education since 1946. Mr. Gupta is a leading edupreneur, an eminent writer, and an enthusiastic philanthropist. He's an environmental engineer by qualification and has done his master's in international trade and finance. He heads the Nod 2 chair of FICCI Arise, which is a collegium of leading stakeholders who represent different facets of school education in India. He also leads the Education Committee of PhD Chamber of Commerce, Chandigarh region, and is an advisor to National Independent Schools Alliance, which represents over 65,000 budget schools in 22 states of India. He has attended several national and international conferences in the field of education in UK, Australia, Finland, UAE, USA, China, France, Japan, and other countries, and regularly speaks at various national and international forums on diverse topics like Industrial Revolution 4.0, school education sector, safety and security in schools, regulation and autonomy, leadership and teacher development, technology and education, etc. Mr. Gupta has been conferred with numerous prestigious awards, including the Edupreneur of the Year 2019 by World Education Summit, followed by Edupreneur of the Year 2019 by World Didactic Association, Education Entrepreneur of the Year 2016, National Education Excellence Award, Most Distinguished Leader of the Year 2018, and Exceptional Educator by American Board. Besides these, he has been bestowed with appreciation awards by the Chief Ministers of Punjab, Delhi, and Gujarat for various philanthropic work. Mr. Gupta was featured amongst the 3 top edupreneurs of India and has also been featured in several other leading magazines. Mr. Gupta is an eminent writer, an eloquent speaker, and a trainer. He has already written hundreds of photo features and articles for various newspapers and magazines. Privileged to have you on the panel, Mr. Gupta.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vasu.
Next, we have Mrs. Brattati Bhattacharya, Secretary General and CEO of Shikshayatan Foundation, the apex body of 4 units, Marwari Balika Vidyalaya, Shri Shikshayatan School, Shri Shikshayatan College, and Calcutta Business School. Mrs. Bhattacharya started her journey as an investment banker, and after 7 years, she entered the education world. She climbed the ladder from a high school teacher to vice principal, then principal, chief education officer, and founder and promoter of a school. She's a passionate educationist who believes in lifelong learning. Postgraduate in economics from Bombay University and a PG in finance from IGNOU. She's a Governor's Gold Medalist in B.Ed from Jadavpur University. She is on the boards of different educational societies and schools and is the co-chairperson of the Educational Committee of CII-ER. Mrs. Bhattacharya has been recognized and awarded as the Indian Iconic Educationist for Best Education System and Services in West Bengal, Inspiring Best Teacher from the University of Engineering and Management, Bharati Vidya Shiromani from the International Institute of Education Management as an Excellence in Managing Educational Institution from LASWEB. She's a speaker and a panelist for several workshops, seminars, and webinars. She enjoys coaching school teachers and has visited several countries to learn best practices. A very warm welcome to you, Mrs. Bhattacharya.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you so much. Next, I would like to welcome Dr. Jayashree Oza, Senior Advisor and Consultant. Dr. Jayashree Oza has been in the field of education for more than 35 years in various administrative, leadership, and consulting positions in India, USA, and in the South Asia region. A master's in business administration, master's in education, and doctorate in international relations. She founded and directed a professional development center named Center for Education Management and Development for 15 years and has been a team leader for the Technical Cooperation Agency to Government of India through internationally funded programs for 10 years. She has served on numerous education missions to monitor and evaluate various educational schemes and programs for the MHRD and funding agencies such as the World Bank, European Union, and DFID. Mrs. Oza has expertise in various areas of education management with focus on leadership and institutional development, policy research, curriculum and pedagogy, and capacity building, and all of the above. Her passion is social justice. A very warm welcome to the discussion, Dr. Oza.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to welcome Mrs. Kelkar, Director of New Era Senior Secondary School and New Era Preschool at Vadodara. She is the recipient of National Award constituted by NCERT for her paper on innovative methods of school management. She was also invited by NCERT to be a member of the team to prepare teacher training manuals for Northeastern states for teaching mathematics and then to train the master trainers in effective techniques to teach mathematics. She was invited by NCERT to present a paper at National Seminar on Economics Teaching in Schools. She has presented the paper at the International Conference at IIT Delhi and at International Conference at Stockholm, Sweden. She has also presented more than 30 papers of national seminars on various topics related to education at MS University, SNDT University, CBSE National Sahodaya Conferences. She is the founder chairperson of Central Gujarat Sahodaya Complex of CBSE schools with 84 member schools. A very warm welcome to you, Mrs. Kelkar.
Thank you.
And finally, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Dr. Snehal Pinto, Director of RIME International Group of Institutions. Dr. Snehal Pinto is an educationist with a rich experience of over 20 years in various capacities, including teaching and leadership. She started out as a primary school teacher, moved up the career ladder to take on various leadership roles. She has completed her doctorate in education from the Nova Southeastern University, Florida, USA. She's a former president of the Association of Schools for the Indian School Certificate and has been a member of the executive general body of the CISCE. As a result-driven leader, she has made a significant contribution in enhancing teaching learning process in order to develop effective student engagement. Her focus has been professional development, assessments, and leadership. With experience across various state and national boards, which include CBSE, ICSE, IB, and IGCSE, she is responsible for leveraging strengths across all of these for improved school performance. In order to maximize the school's efficiency, she has been consistent in bringing strong process orientation by leveraging various methodologies, including those of IB and NABET. With a proven ability to develop and strengthen management team, she has been working on improving the quality of school education across the country. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Pinto. So thank you for all for joining us today. On behalf of Collins Learning, I would really welcome all of you to the panel discussion. Coming to the National Education Policy 2020, we can say that it is revolutionary in many ways. Changing after 34 years, the main idea behind the policy is to make education more inclusive and skill-oriented. It focuses on certain key aspects such as early childhood care and education, restructuring 10 plus 2 to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, experiential learning, learning in mother tongue, vocational training, starting from class 6, three-language formula, extensive use of technology, professional development of teachers, emphasis on value education, assessments, flexibility in taking exams, flexibility in choosing streams, making it multidisciplinary, skill-based education, and instilling global citizenship values. I would like to begin by understanding what your favorite takeaways are from NEP 2020. So can we begin with Mrs. Bharman? Would you like to share your ideas about NEP 2020? What are your favorite takeaways, ma'am?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I would like to begin. And as you rightly said, it is a very revolutionary document. It's come after 36 years, actually. And obviously, there have been quite a few takeaways for me. So I'm going to try and make it brief. To begin with, a good evening and Jai Hind to everyone who's viewing us, and especially my co-panelists. Great, greetings to you also, and a big thank you to Collins for giving me this opportunity to share the stage with my co-panelists. So to begin with, early childhood, in fact, my area of research. I think this 5 + 3 + 3 + 4 formula with great emphasis on 5, because that was a hitherto neglected area, is very important and very close to my heart. The moment it has got recognition, what's going to happen is that there's going to be special training on this front. And the fact that the NEP particularly mentions the research that says that 85% of your brain develops, or any human brain develops, by age 6, is going to draw the country's attention towards that age group, which was usually felt like, बच्चा तो भी छोटा है, क्यों स्कूल जाना है, क्यों उसको अच्छे से पढ़ाना है, थोड़े दिनों के बाद जब बड़ा हो जाएगा. But by the time वो बड़ा होता, I think there's a lot of damage that's already done. So positively, one of my favorites is the early childhood part. The other is RTE, which has got extended. RTE is now going to be from age 3 to 18, which again, I think is a great move, because to start at class 1 and to have ended it at class 8 was something that was a little unfinished. Today, education has become important for everyone. For the poorest of the poor, he wants his child to get educated to a little longer age, till at least class 12. So I think that's great. Plus, RT is also going to be changed to include few practicalities, like the land area is going to be changed, the requirements that are needed. That's going to draw a lot of private entrepreneurs in the urban areas to start investing in schools. It's going to become a little easier. And I think that way, good education is going to reach a lot of people. Reduction of the course to only keep the core essentials. Very, very good point, because I think there's overburdening. There's too much that we want to do. So we're going to be working towards more holistic development. And there's also going to be reduction, therefore, of the weight of the bag, which is mentioned. And I think these are, again, things which are very close to my heart. The 3-language policy is great. It was already there, so I think it's a repeat. But what's important is teaching children wherever possible till class 5 or 8 in the mother tongue. There have been a lot of controversies over it, but I think it's the best move. The best countries, educational countries in the world, have always taught in their mother tongue, and the bilingual part that they specifically mention. So I think for schools, if we are going to be bilingual and emphasize a lot on mother tongue, children are going to be concerned not so much with the language and struggle with it, but actually try and learn core thoughts and core concepts, which are important. Again, skill-based learning has been spoken about, and very good subjects like AI and design thinking have been spoken about. So I think these are, again, great moves. Vocational course, once in any one of the years 6, 7, and 8. Later, I'll talk about it when you talk about choices, but I think that's a very, very good move. Also, it's going to give children choices. Assessment shift is very big, because now they're going to make assessments only on core concepts. It's not going to be rote memorization and assessment. So I think that's another big thing, because it's going to make a change all through in the learning teaching transaction, because otherwise it was just like mujhe course khatam karna hai. Now you go deeper, because there's less to study, but assessments are also going to be different. Board exams are going to become much easier, and therefore this rush to coaching centers and just running around here and there are also going to reduce. Assessments, because we are getting ready for the next PISA, is very, very important for a shift from rote memorization to more formative, more HOTS, and more core concept assessments. I do like the idea, but with a little bit of pinch of salt, of the 3, 5, and 8 class assessment. Though they say it's going to be for mainly learning outcomes, they also mention that it's going to be public disclosure, because they want us to work, right from the junior school. I have a little bit of doubt on that. When you say that you're going to talk about public disclosure, I have a feeling it's going to become like the class 10 and 12 board examination rush for the press and, putting pressure on kids. There's a possibility. And plus, it may become a little prescriptive. And so I'm not very happy about children at that young age going in for a public examination. I also feel the teacher training part is beautiful. 4 years integrated, 3 years, and the 1 year, which is specialized. I think all of them are lovely. And also the part that TET doctors, teachers also need to be repeatedly sitting for examination and brushing their knowledge. Continuous professional development, 50 hours for the teacher and for the leader. Brilliant. You have to continuously keep learning to keep yourself abreast with what is the latest. So I really love that. Another thing which I think is going to affect the respect and the salary of teachers is the parity in the salary system, which means that in your four stages, you're going to be going up the ladder within your particular stage. Not that you have to be a PGT to get a better salary, and if you're a PRT, you don't get a good salary. That's where, in fact, there was disrespect for PRTs. So I think I just love this because it's going to give respect to just about everyone. And because of paucity of time, there's one more thing which I want to mention, which I really loved. And actually, somewhere I feel personally responsible because I really have been giving these ideas also to the government whenever I've been meeting people in the policy making, which is the twinning of a private school with a public school. So when it comes to our own CSR as private entrepreneurs, I think that sharing of resources, sharing of best practices is really going to take us very far. It's going to be our corporate social responsibility. Since we are into education, I think that's something that we can really do to handhold the government institutions. So I think I'll just keep it brief. There are many more, but I think there are a lot of other panelists. I'm not going to bite into their time. On the whole, great document. Hope it is implemented well. I hope it doesn't become another paper tiger the way it is for most of the other documents. But I'm happy that when the Prime Minister spoke on the NEP, he said that there is a political will to implement it in the right way. And I think that's something I'm really looking forward to. I'm very excited about the new education policy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Burman. You have actually touched most of the points, and something that has really come out is the structure and the skill-based education, the flexibility in what they're going students can learn, and also the teacher training bit, which is very, very interesting. Now it is kind of it is mentioned in the document. It is official that teachers will undergo that training, and they can also grow up the ladder, like you said. It is absolutely beautiful, and twinning private with public. I mean, that is you have nailed it. I mean, that is something that is so important for our country. So I'll now thank you so much for your views. Now I will go to Mr. Gupta for his views on the NEP. What are your favorite takeaways, Mr. Gupta?
Thank you, Rashiri, and good evening, all of you, to all my co-panelists and all the participants. So finally, NEP is here after 34 years. We had the National Policy on Education in 1986, which was modified in 92, and then we subsequently we had RTE. But Amrita has very beautifully summed up most of the aspects of NEP. Over the years, whatever I have been thinking about, during my visits to various schools in Europe, America, and other countries. So whatever I have been thinking, if not all, most of those things, most of those, parameters have been covered in, this new document, NEP 2020, which is, I think aligned to the 2030 agenda of sustainable development, and is based on the foundational pillars of access, equity, quality, affordability, and accountability. It has everything to offer. And I absolutely, endorse Amrita's point of view, I just hope that it is implemented in its true letter and spirit. So this NEP, I think, has surely the potential to transform India in a vibrant knowledge society, since it has catered to the most of the requirements of learners by emphasizing the integration of technology at all level. So besides, all other points like, early childhood, gender inclusion, emphasis on foundational literacy and numeracy, and no rigid separation between various academic streams, especially for the children, entering +1, +2, the biggest challenge was to select the right stream. Besides, universalization of education from preschool to secondary education, I think everything, every aspect of NEP is truly laudable. However, my favorite aspect of NEP is, are the changes made in domain of curriculum and pedagogy in the K-12 segment. And especially the, introduction of contemporary subjects like artificial intelligence, design thinking, environmental education, in addition to emphasis on vocational education through the bagless policy. I think all of these are very, very progressive steps. Also, diminishing the rigid separation I was talking about between substreams like science, humanities, and giving freedom of choosing the subject is indeed a welcome move in the right direction. In fact, a lot of changes have been proposed at the level of higher education also, like the flexible curriculum and the provision of multiple exit and entry points, they are all commendable. So it's a very, very progressive shift towards a scientific approach to education. I think it was more than needed. It was high time that we had something like this. And I'm sure this new prescribed structure, has the potential to bring India at par with the leading countries in the world. Again, as I said, if it is implemented in true letter and spirit. Over the years, I've been from being from a technical background, whatever has been my experience, particularly in this K-12 segment, I have firmly believed that, whatever, we've been teaching to the child from grade 1 to grade 12, in terms of content, in terms of subject knowledge, because our education has been more or less, curriculum centric and, focused on examinations more than skill and aptitude. So if I used to think that, if we minus all the, things which the child has been given from grade 1 to grade 12 in terms of subject knowledge and in terms of, curriculum, and at the end of grade 12, if we subtract it from child's personality, whatever, content and subject knowledge has been given to child, whatever is left with the child is what education is. And I'm happy that, NEP has, from values to being responsible, resilience, empathy. I think, NEP has touched upon all chords. And my favorite, since for the last few years, we had already introduced artificial intelligence, and we've been into a lot of experiential learning and project-based learning. And I'm happy to share that, talking about vocational education, since ours is almost, we are going to be 75 next year. So I'm happy to share that, a lot of things, which have been prescribed in NEP, we have been doing in our DCM schools, not now, not since last 3 years, for the last 7 decades. And I'm happy that, now we'll be, working on all those things in a more of a formalized, system. So absolutely amazing document. And, I'm very excited, like Amrita said, and I'm really looking forward. In fact, we are not waiting for any further guidelines. We've already, started making, our restructuring our curriculum and, our delivery of education as per the provisions of NEP. Thank you, Rashmi.
Thank you so much for your thoughts, Mr. Gupta. Yeah, actually, I mean, one line that is going to stay with me, from what you said, is what is left with the child is education, which is so true, which is something that was really missing. And, the curriculum has actually talked about that. I mean, the document talks about that. So what children will grow up to be, I mean, that is something that is very, very essential.
Absolutely.
And we were not promoting skill development so aggressively, but now with this new document, We hope that it will be very integrated in all the subjects, and children will actually learn, skills which are life skills. So thank you so much. Moving on, I would like to invite Mrs. Bratuti Bhattacharya for her views on the NEP.
Thank you so much. And good evening to all of you. And thanks for inviting me here. Well, I think the two speakers have covered most of it. And I must say that it is definitely an overhaul and something which we were all waiting, and something I personally like because it is learner-centric. And, it goes with, in fact, our group's, motto, empowering the child. Because every time, we were thinking from the point of view of the educator. But now everything that we are doing is to see that the child learns, because learning is the most important factor out here. So including the ECE, the early childhood learning, is really a very good move, because so many children are now being, brought into this education system from that age of 3. In fact, we've visited quite a few countries, and we've seen that what importance is given to this early childhood learning, and the experiential learning that we are talking of, we can start right away from that age. What will this do? This will also create a lot of employment, which also includes many people, because if today with COVID we are thinking that many employments are not there, but I would say with this NEP, there are many employments which will come in, because it is not only teachers education but also platform, tools, content writing, everything will happen for this particular group. Apart from that, this blended learning and experiential learning, what is good is definitely the vocational part of it. Vocation, let me, share that it is not that it was not there. It was there, but somehow people took it as, a subject which many of the people were not good at. They were coming from open schools and they were the ones who were taking vocational subject. But now it is not going to be that. It is going to be integrated, and it will go up to the higher education level, which is really a very good move. Not only that, the gross enrollment ratio that we are talking of, it is 26% now, and it'll go up to 50%. That's the, another target area. And that is why in the higher education, where, we have brought in this entry and exit, and giving value to that is also a very important move. Because today, for many reasons, one cannot carry on with their, studies. But with this, probably our enrollment ratio will increase, and people will get the liberty to complete their education, even, at a stage where they are free to do it. Now, with this, what is happening also with higher education, we've seen that, this giving some importance to the science subject, because especially in Kolkata, I have seen most of the people would only like to become engineers and doctors. And though the concept has changed, but still, most of the parents, they would just like their children to be either engineers or just take up science. But now it is not going to be like that. So all subjects are given importance, and people don't have this division. So definitely this is also going to be good for the children, so they can combine whatever they like. And as I said, that it is learner centric, and which is going to be very, very positive for the child's growth. Apart from that, what is good is also not only at, for school level, yes, we had a B.Ed course, but yes, that was one time. But now that 50 hours of training will really be another very good move. So one will be updated with all the new things that are coming in. And it is not only for the school level, it is also for the higher education level, which is becoming mandatory. So earlier, this was also not there. So we need teacher trainers also. So this is also another area where we need to work at the framework. Another very good aspect is the assessment pattern, which takes into account all the 360-degree areas. It's not only, what you get in a board exam or, so it's a continuous development of the child. I think what I'll do is that I'll stop here because there are other panelists and I think they also need an area to talk of. And I think we are running also out of time. So thank you very much. I'll come back later and maybe talk on other things. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Bhattacharya. Yeah, in fact, employability is one of the key factors that the NEP talks about. So we are all excited about how it shapes up, and vocational training is certainly going to add to that. So yes, I am also quite mindful of the time. So I'll go next to Dr. Jayashree Oza for her views on the NEP, please. Dr. Oza.
Good evening to all of you, and thank you for inviting me. I would like to mention, I agree with all these wonderful points have been mentioned. I will speak to 4 specific aspects that truly I like. And one is, of course, the policy itself, is a number of you talked about. It is transformative in nature. What is transformative about it? It is what used to be a standardized all across the system, whether it is curriculum, pedagogy, assessments, etc. It is now being converted to, essentially, it's going to be customized. To me, I think that's critical, given the individual differences. I think that standardization, moving towards customization, to me is most critical and absolutely wonderful in the new education policy. The pedagogical shifts, which have been talked about, and I will speak to that later when we have the time. But I do want to say that all of these skills, what is it going to do is create a potential to prepare skilled, knowledgeable entrepreneurs, workforce leaders. That's critically important. The point that I would like to make, this NEP 2020 is built on the past policies and past experiences of implementation. We must commend the country for having achieved almost universal access, right? What we have not been able to achieve is learning and the quality of learning. And the focus on learning outcomes and systems accountability is the second piece that I truly like about the NEP. The third piece, and without which I think the rest of the policy will not really be successful, is foundational literacy and numeracy. Unless the children begin to read simple text at the grade 3 level, it is a gateway skill. If you can't read, you can't learn any further. And to me, that has become important. Not only that NEP has found it to be important, it has called out a mission for it to by 2025 to achieve this objective. And to me, I think that kind of targeting is critical and important. The fourth is, of course, once again, to talk about goal of universal access and equity for the high school. I have to say, while I appreciate the policy, I do want to say I have a mixed feeling around it, partly because I do not believe that we are up to speed to make it happen. The last point that I would like to mention, just to keep to my 3 minutes, and that is to say, and this is a kind of a challenge to all of us, to say unless the institutional capacity is built to deliver this, it could become, and we don't want it to become that way, is that it can just remain a paper document. While we may like it very much, we have great policies. We have to think of institutional capacity develop and implementation planning that is targeted and goal-oriented. So with this, I would stop. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Oza. Yes, we all understand that the policy, will be as good when it is implemented. So we are all very, very happy about the policy document at the moment. So, but how it is implemented, what are the chances that it, what are the challenges that schools might face when you mention institutional capacity? So that is something that we have to bear in mind. So definitely yes. But yes, I mean, one great thing is about, giving that choice to the student so that they can plan their learning, right? I mean, so that is a very important feature of this document. So thank you so much for your thoughts. And next, I would invite Mrs. Kelkar to share her views on the NEP. Mrs. Kelkar.
Thank you. Good evening to all panelists and all participants. on the screen and on Facebook. Love to be here, and thank you so much, HarperCollins, for inviting me here to listen to all of you and to share a few things. Of course, everybody has talked about everything really, but then I will talk about what is at my heart. The best part in NEP is the ECCE, and that's where my love is really, the early childhood care and education, and which should start, as the policy says, actually in prenatal stages, because when the mother is 20 weeks pregnant, you will find the child starts developing, the brain starts developing, the child associates sounds and associates the voices, and that is where really the NEP is talking about. And even the earlier NEPs, if you see, they have been talking about the nursing mothers and expectant mothers and their health, and what should be they be reading, what should they be talking, how should they be behaving. That is where the other NEPs also, and it is not something new that this ACC is talking about these times. It was earlier also, it was there. And like the Prime Minister said, it has the political will, but I would say it has to have the collecting will from all of us, the collective will of all the teachers. They're talking about peer educators, but it is not the peer education only for student to student, but it should be from the urban teachers to the rural teachers. If Anganwadi teachers are going to be trained, then we as the urban teachers will have to look after that area also. ECC mainly talks about the prenatal and postnatal from 0 years to 3 years. And so many people have been raising objections and doubts as to why 0 to 3 years, why is the NEP, why is NCERT talking about. But we are not talking about here the literate mothers and literate fathers, but we are talking about here across the society, all people, they do not know how to raise the children between the age of 0 to 3. The gross motor skills actually develop in the age of 0 to 3. And the teachers in the preschool again build on that, but really they are built in the 0 to 3 years. And unless the gross motor skills are properly developed, the confidence will not be there in the child. It's not only for sports that you need the gross motor skills, but the muscles need to be trained, or the muscles in the neck, in the shoulder, in the hands, in the legs have to be strong enough for the child to take up the education in the later stages. ECC also talks about the 3 areas which need to be developed: the cognitive development, which can be done through, it is not that cognitive development you are going to ask the children to sit and read or something, but pre-reading, pre-mathematics. And when I say pre-mathematics, the shapes, sizes, differences, greater than, lesser than, all such things can be done in the pre-mathematics. In pre-science, you are not teaching them concept of magnetism, but you are giving them the magnets and asking them to manipulate and play with them. So that is the way they should be doing that at the preschool level. The second development that is required is the affective domain. Affective domain can be developed through participating in various festivals, then talking about, you have that song, if you're happy, then you clap, 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 all such things, so that the children are able to express their feelings, and then let the children be expressive. When ma'am was talking about the foundational literacy, are we allowing the children to talk, or do we only keep on talking? We should allow the children to talk, ask them simple questions, tell them stories, repetitive stories, so that they start talking about those stories, and in between ask the questions to find out the attention, so that slowly they learn to have control on themselves. The third domain is the psychomotor domain, and I just touched upon the gross motor skills, but fine motor skills can be developed by crayoning, etc., maybe filling up the colors, or maybe seriating objects, or maybe beading, etc. Then the psychomotor skills can be also developed. Basically, the policy is really talking about 21st century skills built in the children. And 21st century skills, one is going to be the learning skills, how to learn, learning to learn. That is most important skill which we have missed out. The teachers keep on teaching, but they do not allow the children to learn by themselves. So that is the most important skill that we need to talk about. Second important 21st century skill is going to be literacy skill. Or literacy skill is really the media literacy, technology literacy. That is very important. And third is going to be life skill. How are you going to teach the children to be leaders? How are you going to tell them about self-awareness? How are you going to teach the children to take initiative in doing things? So basically the policy, if you see the whole policy document, it's really making the children 21st century learners and ultimately 21st century employable people. So the employment skills are taught to the children there. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Taylor. Definitely, like, if we start early, then we can build on that, right? I mean, so that is the motive of the NEP as well, as it documents it. So moving on, I would request Dr. Snehal Pinto to share her views on the NEP.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me here. Thank you, Collins, for this opportunity. I want to thank the Lord Jesus for this time, for this opportunity, and just the platform to just even submit my deliberations on this. And thank you to the co-panelists for their observations on the NEP. Firstly, this policy couldn't have come out at a more strategic time. Like the Honorable Prime Minister said, COVID has taught us a lot of things. And now it makes sense, this document coming out at this time, the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. And I think this is almost laying a foundation stone towards that. Firstly, and also congratulations to all the policymakers, to even much thought obviously has gone into this document. Voices from the stakeholders seem to have made their way into the document, as well as good practices from various international boards has made its way into the document. So great steps in the right direction. And author Daniel Pink remarked, the future belongs to a very different kind of person with a different kind of a mind. Creators and empathizers, pattern recognizers, and meaning makers. These people will reap society's richest rewards and share its greatest joys. And this document almost essentially resonates this quote. What I love about the NEP is something that our founder chairman, Dr. Pinto, he is a visionary for us, and he loved the idea of vocational education starting from middle and secondary school. And to see that making its way here is a fantastic, heartening thing for us. So my favorite thing is firstly the inclusion of vocational training and education starting from grade 6. It will not only empower the kids and not just the ones who are academically inclined, but even the ones who are hands-on learners, who want to, who are entrepreneurs at heart and want to do something. So it kind of is an empowering step for them. The very alignment from, to use a colleague's phrase, Senthil's phrase, from the learning world to a world of work, it provides you a transition from the world of learning to the world of work, and it is comprehensive. The K-12, the higher ed, it is a great document which underlines all of these intentions, which is good. More than anything, the accountability is higher because it is directly under the purview of our Honorable Prime Minister. There are certain timelines that are already in place. By 2040, the aim is to have a completely new education system. This is, you don't get to see timelines very often, but there have been some, not vague, but some clearly defined timelines. By 2025, we want to see foundational numeracy and literacy, reaching to our primary years students, which is great. We have 2 crore children out of school. To ensure all of this happens and get them back into the system, it's going to be a daunting task. And like my colleague said, the implementation is going to be the critical key here. And as much as the onus is not just on the policy and the policymakers as much as on the stakeholders at every level. We will need that alignment, the mindset change, the perception change to contribute and be participators in making this happen. And more than anything, I love the flexibility given to our children in the higher ed sector. Usually there's a whole lot of pressure once they get into secondary. Sports has gone out of the window, arts has gone out of the window, syllabus completion is takes primary stance, and as much as you don't want that happening for them, systemically there's now an intended step backed by political will in the document to see that change happen. So which is welcoming from all of us. I mean, we've been wanting this happening, but it is here now. Arts to be integrated, sports to be integrated. So if a kid is interested in sports and can pursue sports education in the higher ed, will be a great thing happening. I'm so glad, even in the current system, to see our children pursue sports while making education, learning happen. Chirag is Chirag Shetty is a student receiving the Arjuna Award. That is in itself an accomplishment for us. So not everything was bad about what was going on, but this is more of a building blocks to a transformative future for our children. And while change is happening at a faster rate, our children are not going to be just leaders who are going to see the future unfold, but this policy will enable and empower them to be co-creators, to shape that unfolding of that future. So I'm very excited about these aspects of the NEP. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pinto. Absolutely, this brings in so much hope, and whatever we have thought of has been documented in this NEP. And we are, as you rightly said, that onus is on everyone to make this a success. So as much, there's political will, there's we all have been waiting for this, and now we have to jointly work together to make this a great success. So some of the key takeaways from what, all of you have said is that, the inclusivity that we all wanted in education is very well documented in this NEP. Foundational literacy and numeracy in the starting ECCE, so that has taken precedence, and that has also been very, very structured. The private-public mirroring of schools, that is very, very important for a developed society, and that is what happens if we see in international education as well. So this is something that is also going to be a very important focus area for all of us. Change in assessments, definitely moving from rote learning to skill-based assessments. So definitely that's a huge change. Focus on skills such as AI, design thinking. So that is again a very welcome change. Flexibility in choosing streams. So yes, it is learner-centric. The NEP is talking about the learners, so which is at the core of the policy, which is again a great thing. Vocational education, as all of you have rightly mentioned. And so before we move forward, so this is a very an important document and an important phase in all of our lives, right? Because it affects all of us in many ways. It will change the education landscape that we think that is there in the country at the moment. So, and we all are have to take this forward together. So that is why it is a very, very crucial time for all of us. And what better than now to have this document, because the pandemic, as you rightly said, has changed many things for all of us. So going forward, because we have paucity of time, so I will go on to the questions now. And the first question, we would start with Dr. Oza. Dr. Oza, the NEP has restructured the school system to 5+3+3+4. How do you think this will impact learning? So we already, you have shared your thoughts about, the NEP and the ECCE, but how do you think this will impact learning in particular? So Dr. Oza, over to you.
Thank you, Rajeshri. I would like to say, and I'm sure most of you have looked at the document itself. However, just when we talk about 5+3+3+4, I'll just quickly share my screen just to show the manner in which it is being presented in the document itself. So if you look at it in terms of traditionally, the preschool was not mentioned as a part of formal system of education. And we had a 2-block system, which was ages 6 to 16, 10 years of grade 1 to 10 education, and then senior secondary school, 2 grades. What is now being done is in terms of foundational, there are 2 parts, which is one is preschool or Anganwadi or Balvatika. Then 2 years of grade 1 and 2. This 5-year block is considered foundational to the education and critically important. A number of panelists have actually highlighted how important and critical it is. I myself talked about it. want to go to the next block, which is second block, which is preparatory block. And essentially we're talking about grade 3 to grade 5, ages 8 to 11. This is a 3-year period that we're talking about. Then the middle school, which we always traditionally also call it middle school, is classes 6 to 8, ages 11 to 14. This is the third block, and the fourth block of class 9 to 12, all four integrated together. Now, in making it before we come to how is it going to impact, I'm going to specifically talk to 3 or 4 points in terms of how will this impact different things that is we all are directly associated with. So the structural change need to be viewed from the prism of. And before I go to that, I want to say the document clearly states that there is no expectation of structural or infrastructural change to take place. And I'm saying classroom arrangements, etc., surely, but no wider policy, structural level changes in terms of the manner in which this will be done. What is critically important, however, is to say in all four, governance and accountability in curriculum, in teachers service condition, as well as professional development, pedagogy and assessment, there are fundamental changes. So what I see it is more substantive than physical. That is what I think is and this will lead to impact on learning from my perspective. I would like to say that if we start talking from the looking at the curricular changes, and a number of you alluded to it by talking about in terms of the kind of, in FLN, for example, we are talking about targets, set targets for learning. We are talking about curriculum and pedagogical frameworks to be developed at the state levels, and obviously in followed and further developed in individual schools. It also talks about multilingualism. Multilingualism from variety of perspectives in terms of, particularly it talks to the medium of instruction should be, multiple medium of instruction should be provided, focus on the 3-language formula which one of the panelists said it exists. However, there is a more focus on classical languages as well as international languages, and focus on introduction of higher order cognitive skills, on vocational education, on 21st century skills, on computational skills, on critical thinking. All of these are going to require a huge shift in the manner in which we think of the curriculum and design it. So there is going to be, so while we think of these words, we need to also be looking at how it is going to change in terms of its own, the mechanisms of planning and in terms of being able to deliver it. So let's talk about pedagogy. So even in pedagogy, there are huge shifts being required of us, starting with multidisciplinary approach. Number of you talked about how there is not going to be watertight demarcation of arts and science, etc., and children will have an opportunity to choose that. It is going to, so from an implementation perspective, and I think Ragashri in the beginning talked about that there are a lot of questions about implementation which are coming up, and I want to begin to respond to that we need to, at the institutional level, if we think of 2021 as a preparatory phase and a planning phase so that implementation can truly begin 22, we need to think about how are we going to be able to offer this at the school level, but also at the institutional level, at the larger government system and otherwise. So we talk about life skills, we talk about creativity and critical thinking. We are definitely, as I talked about the FLN as a mission, I think these are going to be some of the things that we need to begin to plan now, is what I would like to say. With respect to teacher, there are two aspects. One is, I think some of you talked about professional development. I think truly lauded. It's extremely important. There are frameworks need to be developed and designed. The recording of those need to be. It is a deep subject in terms of a lot of preparatory work will need to get done to say how do we have the curriculum and pedagogy which is going to be transformational. How will we prepare our teachers? Also, it actually, for the first time in a way, alludes to teacher management, management aspect of it in terms of its recruitment, development, deployment, transfer, career progression. I think not only the government systems of school, but even individual and chain of schools will need to begin to think of these, because these are going to be huge promises to make teacher cadre professional. And that is something which teachers have been looking for. Young teachers, I think some of you said that we've left very lucrative careers and moved to teaching. It at least needs to get a recognition as a profession. Alignment towards national professional standards for teachers, which is newly come up, which is going to be NPST, which also will be at the state level. And teachers will have to slowly begin to subscribe to that. There will need to be defined roles of teachers with higher accountability expected of them. And also, one of you alluded to this whole career management and progression, where there is going to be parity between PRTs, TIGTs, PGTs. So this whole hierarchy will not remain. And that gives the teacher who is in that particular block, let's say block 1 of FLN, it makes her expand her knowledge in FLN rather than trying to say, okay, how can I move up to TGT and PGT so that my prestige and pay increases? I think it's a huge shift. Once again, we need to begin to work towards it and think around it. I would like to talk about a student assessment. I think that is, to me, the most important shift here is on formative assessment. And that means continuous. Now, we have gone through this whole idea of CCE, and obviously it hasn't set well, it didn't work well, and I don't even want to allude to CCE. I do want to say on a VTE basis, on a concept by concept, on micro competency level, are there going to be testing and records maintained at the teacher level? It does not have to go up. But that formative assessment, which will guide teacher to mediate her teaching on a regular basis, which groups of students are where and how can I move them along? So that is the first shift which is required, which means that even new kinds of assessment, etc., will need to be designed and teachers will need to get trained on that. I want to say that at a national level, there is expectation of PARAK, the assessment center, which is going to be established, and at the state level, assessment cells are to be established as has been suggested. There are, and I can understand the apprehension which was shared by one of the panelists in terms of key stage examination for grade 3, 5, and 8, which is essentially for the government and private schools. That is going to be, in terms of somewhere, we're beginning to say, how is learning attainment taking place? It is in a way different from the board examinations of 10th and 12th. However, all of these assessments are going to be competency-based and not rote memorization. Once again, this requires a huge cultural shift if that can be achieved. And of course, national achievement surveys as a barometer for how is the system functioning, that will, as a sample-based assessment, will continue. I would like to finally talk about, in terms of governance and accountability, there are 4 big measures which have been suggested. Phase-wise planning to be carried out at the central, at the state, and also institutional level. Developing comprehensive data reporting formats and building dashboards for sharing the information, not only with the students, parents, and the community at large. It is expectation of the policy. Develop school quality assessment accreditation framework, which is the other important aspect, that not only students will be assessed, but the schools will be assessed as well. And review and provision of RTE towards ensuring enhanced access towards to all of these different levels of learning. So this kind of a larger, broader outcome orientation, more than I look at it, governance and accountability under that, but it is essentially outcome orientation and not let's do these things, right? And to me, that's critically important. The question that Ragashri asked was impact on learning. I would like to start by saying, simple answer to this question is, this restructuring provides for appropriate trust in terms of content, curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment that is developmentally appropriate. And I think that is one thing we have not really focused in our education, to say what is right in terms of development of the child. what is right approach. So in pedagogy, there are changes being made at the foundational level, at the middle level, at the secondary level. And to me, that is critical. Now, will we achieve this impact? Yes. Key success is institutional building and institutionalizing effective processes. Accountability, which I talked about a minute back, in terms of the school, of the system, of the teachers, to ensure student learning. And final point that I would make is greater alignment towards goal of student learning can foster and needs to be fostered through teamwork, communication, leadership to change management at all levels of the system, from student up to the minister. And if that can take place, we will surely have an impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oza. That was actually like, you rightly mentioned that there's a change expected at every level. And, it's not just restructuring of the curriculum, it is also restructuring of every level, like, be it at the level of the teacher, the level of the management, at the level of the policy making, at the level of the government. So every level we have to make those changes. So thank you so much for your thoughts. And because we are really running out of time, so I will quickly go on to the next question that we have. That is for Mrs. Bharman. Mrs. Bharman, the policy states places students' choice at the core. How do you envisage this will help in achieving the desired learning outcome?
So I think the moment you give choices to children, you make them responsible. So I think when the NEP has given choices, which I will mention at a few levels that are very, very significant. And the moment the child makes the choice, he not only becomes responsible to what he's going to do, I think he's also happier, because it's not a very good idea to just put them into little fixed boxes and say, look, this is what you need to do and have to do. It's just giving them, like a buffet and telling them you may choose what you want to. And I guess children will be able to achieve better. So where are the choices coming up and where are the flexibilities there? Quite a few things have already been mentioned by the panelists. So one is the subject choices. The subject choices at the 9, 10, 11 and 12, especially 11 and 12 level, the children have. Actually, this is something the children already had. In CBSE, there was no such criteria that you couldn't take, maybe with a history, you couldn't take maths. There were no streams at all. But what happened was children weren't taking these because in the higher education, there were still silos. They were still going in streams. So if you didn't take maths, you didn't know whether you would really get into a BCom or you wouldn't. So even if I was not happy with maths, I had to take maths, for example. Now that there is a change at the higher education part, it is going to have an impact on school education. The schools will be offering, children will be happier in taking all kind of subject combinations, which I think is going to be very beneficial. So that's one big choice that the children have because of the change at the higher education policy. The other thing at the school level is that children would be allowed to take all examinations and subjects like maths. They've already started with the basic and a standard. All the other subjects would be offered at 2 levels. I think this is very good. There are certain things like a science I'm not very good at, but yes, I need to have my basic knowledge of. So can I do a basic science and move on because I'm interested in humanities? I think that choice should be given to children. And I think that's been beautifully placed in the NEP this year. This time. The other thing, the other choice is the board examinations. Now, a child could appear for the board examination once. If he hasn't done well, there were times when children thought they could do better, but they would land up with marks which were kind of just passing, and you were stuck with it for life. Whereas there must have been a little problem. Otherwise, I'm very good, but I couldn't perform in this examination. I know that I can do better. Can I get a choice the way you have abroad? So here now the child will have a choice of giving the board examinations once again for improvement. Otherwise, you had to fail, get a compartment to be able to appear for the board examinations the other time. So I think that's another very important choice. The other thing is when we did mention about vocational education coming up, at least for 1 year in 6, 7, and 8. Number one, I think that's given a lot of respect to vocational. The moment I have done vocational in 6, 7, and 8, I have got a taste of it. Whatever it is, whether it is vocational in carpentry, for example. Now, if I want to pick up vocational after I pass out from school, I know what is the vocation that I like, what is it that I can do. And after I finish with school, rather than going in for the academic stream, I can go in for a vocation. So I think that choice and that respect given to vocational education in this NEP has been a great choice for a lot of children all over. And one of the last things that I want to mention is the entry and the exit point, already mentioned by someone. The academic bank of credit. I think that's a beautiful thing. If I want to study only for 1 year, I keep my credit in the bank, I get a certificate, I can come back whenever I want, because there are a lot of children in our country, which is a developing poor country, where sometimes children can't afford to study more than 1 year. And then if I want to come back, I have to start my graduation from the beginning. No, now you have your credit in your credit bank. So 1 year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, and then research. So I think this entry exit point that they've given in the higher education is a great choice for a child to drop and then come back again. So the moment you give this flexibility, you open new doors, I think you really make children happier, you make children responsible for their own learning, and that's going to have a great benefit. So that's all that I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. I mean, thank you so much for your views, Mrs. Bharman. I mean, I think you have covered a lot of important points that, what the policy has actually done is like putting children's freedom and choice to choose right at the core of this document. So it is essential, and I mean, with freedom comes responsibility, as you rightly said. So children will be more responsible for what they learn and how they learn. So that is a very, very crucial point of this document. So thank you so much for your views. Moving on, I will go to the next question. And that is for Mr. Gupta. Mr. Gupta, NEP talks about bagless days and students spending time on learning vocational courses, starting class 6. So how do you think this can be implemented? You have already spoken about some of the vocational courses that DCM, offers, but how do you think this can be implemented on a country level, especially for a country like us?
Yes, Rashiri, the NEP has included the policy, rightly included the policy of bagless days. They have mandated at least 10 bagless days from 6 to 8, and has laid a lot of emphasis on vocational education in schools. Both these measures are laudable, as I said earlier, also in the present scenario, especially as it will align the education with the present demands of the industry and needs of the learner also. You see, I'll take you to the background, to the one of the NASCOM reports, which says that, almost 70 to 80% of college and university pass outs in our, country, they are not employable. So what is happening, the kind of education we are providing in our schools and colleges, is not ultimately catering to the needs of industry, where industry is trying horse that, we are not getting the right kind of skilled manpower, and, our educated engineers and, other graduates and postgraduates, they are not getting the right kind of jobs. So there was a lot of mismatch. And I think, this policy about bagless days, and especially the vocational courses, starting right from class 6 will, cater to that. So, and, especially I think the sense of this policy measures is also to progress the obsolete process, which was emphasizing more on a rote learning, and bring in those initiatives, which were really need of the hour. Both these policies, bagless days and vocational education, also tend to focus on holistic development of the child and not just mere memorization of facts. Now, you see how these bagless days can be, implemented, and how vocational education can be introduced in schools. As far as bagless days, I think a lot of schools already must be, sometimes, the Saturdays are bagless days, or Wednesdays are bagless days. So already things were happening. So So I think, this will be a school specific, aspect where every school is different from each other in terms of their policy and approach, in terms of their, the curriculum framework. But specifically, I think we can have heritage walks. We can, have industrial trips. We can, have some lot of project-based learning. We can even chip in students, for a lot of community service. A lot of our students are involved in our community outreach programs, serving free food to the patients in the hospital, to cleanliness of the entire town, to, going to various schools and, providing them stationery and helping the kids to learn. So we've been into a lot of community outreach programs, and, these bagless days, will I think, give leeway to the children to pursue, where their heart lies, and from school to school and from child to child, there can be different ways and means, to utilize these bagless days, and much depends on the school, managements and the principals and the senior faculty of the school, that how beautifully they can, utilize these bagless days. And coming to vocational education, you see, I have been strongly advocating vocational education for all these years, when there's been a lot of noise about our low ranking in PISA, and the fact that the Finnish system and the Swiss system, they have been much more advanced. I mean, if you talk about design thinking, if you talk about machine learning. So when I first went to Finland, I realized they started vocational education right from class 9th. So I think, right from carpentry to, programming to the, app designing to the pottery, pursuing something, of your hobby, like, performing arts or literature. So I think, in vocational, we had introduced, I'll tell you, vocational financial marketing management, healthcare, banking and insurance at the senior secondary level long time back. And I can tell you, the students who did this vocational education courses at the senior secondary level, had the HB on their side, they would have been employable, right after passing, grade 12. So much they have learned in these vocational education courses. So I think, while we are talking about, the implementation and, how we can, best pursue these bagless days and vocational education, I think, as we said, earlier also, that implementation of any policy in most of the aspects, it might be whatever, well framed it may be, it will fall off short of promises, due to pitfalls in the implementation, if it is, not taken care right up to the grassroots level. As Prime Minister Modi said, it is not just the political will. I think it will be will of all the stakeholders, which will be required, right at the grassroots level, the teachers, the mentors, the coordinators, everybody will have to, chip in to ensure that, this part of the NEP, does not turn out to be a futile effort. Also, we have to realize the fact that, a lot of companies, they have started providing jobs based on not only certification, but based on skills. So I'm extremely happy that, while the children, will pursue these vocational courses from right from class 6th, it will really, help them, skilling themselves. And if they are skilled, I think, they can take care of their higher education through a virtual mode. They can get into jobs, they can get into startups. We are planning to set up incubators in our schools, because the children have already got into research. They are making beautiful projects, and I'm happy to share that, we have, gone in for patenting of 2 of our research which the students have done in the school. So I think a lot of wonderful things will emerge out of it if both these, backless days, we can, and the vocational education, if we can implement in the schools in a most effective manner. And it should not happen that, we are having extra classes on bagless days, and, teachers are trying to cover up their curriculum in these bagless days. And the vocational education is more on papers than being hands-on. So much onus will be on the school leadership, how beautifully, how effectively they can implement both these things. But I'm really looking forward. I'm really excited. And as I already shared that, we've been already into vocational education in a big way. And we are really looking forward to even mentor other schools to help them in implementation of both these measures in the best possible manner.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Gupta. A very valid point that, maybe there were some schools that were following this, but now it brings uniformity, right? I mean, when it is actually documented and when it is actually written in, as many words that vocational is mandatory starting class 6, then all schools will have to adopt it. And definitely it becomes a responsibility of schools that have been implementing it to train schools that have not, that are yet to start with this implementation. So that would be a great approach. I mean, that is where peer-to-peer, even school mentoring comes into place. So yes, definitely. And as you rightly said, that the mismatch between education that is being offered and employability will be reduced by introducing vocational courses, and will be opening up students to more avenues that they can explore at a later stage.
More than anything, all this requires more than change of mindset. We all of us, we need to be the change if we really want things to happen. And I am sure that, with this introduction of NEP, while there be standardization, so things will open up, and more people will come forward to venture into, improving the quality of education and set up more schools all over India.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Gupta. So now I'll request Dr. Pinto to shed some light on, assessing students. So NEP mentions a lot of reforms in assessing students, moving from assessments that promote rote learning to application and skill-based assessments. So what are your thoughts on this aspect?
So obviously, my colleagues have shed a lot of light on different aspects of it. But what is a welcome change is, and this is something, things have already happened, efforts have already been taken in schools, ours being one of them, where the focus on summative assessments is removed to focus more on an ongoing formative assessment, and regularly and constantly. The aim of the assessment being the learning and development of its learners. And what I'm encouraged is this policy obviously reflects different practices from the international boards, and I was very encouraged to see one of them being assessment not just being off learning, but assessment as for and off learning being reflected, making its way into the document, which is an IBO thing. Different boards contributing to this document, and I heard the Honorable Minister saying, we will have a robust system of assessment. It's while a higher education will have an autonomy, it will be regulated by a national agency, an autonomous body. Coming back to assessment, the focus is more on competency based, and some of my colleagues have already talked about it, where skills and competencies are going to be at the fore, and not so much the memorization skills. The 10th and the 12th, the system will continue. However, it will be revamped so as to remove the undue pressure on our students, because once they get into a certain grade, it's getting them crammed. Their time schedule is crammed with going to coaching classes, and that burden to be removed, that burden to be eliminated, and for them to enjoy learning the subject, and not just for the sake of learning the subject, but really to understand it, to construct knowledge, and to be able to apply that. That is the essence of why assessment will happen. Assessment is not so much to judge the students, although the progression tests are going to be conducted for 3rd, 5th, and 8th, and I remember ICSE Council coming up with a similar thing for 5th and 8th, and there was a major uproar. But now to see that happening into the document is interesting to see it happen. And the idea is not so much to judge the children as much as understand for diagnostic purposes how to help them, how to support their learning experiences further on. And that's why it's at the end of the foundational stage, it's at the end of the middle and primary. And that's why for us to know that while these outcomes are going to be published, I read it, it is more anonymized outcomes. And so, you know, there's a lot of, some of us may tend to react, and the idea is just to understand it and work with it and to try it. And like one of my colleagues said, some of us have already started proactively planning for changes to be incorporated within the system so that you are more proactive at embracing these changes. And that's why assessment being one of them. You know, having schools in the IB, having an IB, PYP, having IGCSE, you tend to take those practices and be able to incorporate it within your national and the state board system as well, within the schools that you have. And so we have been able to see that happen. Our chairman sir said, you know, we're not going to have any homework until 5th standard. We're not going to have any undue pressure on our kids at the summative assessment, at the term exams. And so this policy really reflects that very same essence and resonates that and says, you know, if we're going to do an ongoing assessment, to do some course correction if needed, help them prepare for the future. And the good part about it does not just end at 10th and 12th. It goes further into higher ed. Right. An entry exit plan where there's an academic bank credit, as Amrita said. It's very refreshing to know. And similarly in the K to 12 years, everyone is encouraged. It's written, the educators are encouraged, and it will be AI designed to maintain a portfolio. And that's something I know in the IB as well, and the CAI, where you're encouraged to maintain a portfolio of the students' work, of their progression, of their learning. And this will help, you know, towards that ABC. This will help just the K to 12 part, assessment of, for, and as they learn on. And also the main idea being to promote learning and development of its learners, to help them enhance their higher order thinking, 21st century thinking skills, conceptual understanding being at the core of it. It's not so much of having to learn by rote and throw it out there, but really to understand at different levels. Amrita has already addressed that, where, you know, the children are going to get the option to learn at 2 levels. Again, we see that in the international boards. It's here now. It's for us choose from now. Now it's not, so therefore it's not going to be a us versus them or them versus us. Yes. Now it's all of us together. Yes. You know, to empower our children, to equip our children, to ensure and how we can scaffold and facilitate their learning experiences so that they enjoy learning, so that they own up the process of learning, they take responsibility for that learning and do something about it constructively. And there's a great effort in using Parak for a body that you know, is a performance for analysis of achievement and holistic development, all of that. The good thing is, this is a body that is looking to create equivalence of all the boards. And the idea is not to be prescriptive. The idea is to suggest and recommend collaborative dialogue between the state boards with the national boards along with the other boards. Similarly, the pressure is not going to be just on the 10th and the 12th. There's an autonomous body of National Testing Agency that's going to have a say at the board and the entrance examinations system. And so the pressure from the child, especially in the higher years, is going to be considerably and hopefully to a large extent reduced, and cause them to enjoy learning, you know, contribute to community service, learn global citizenship. Having gone to Banksia in Adelaide, we had a study tour, and we realized that they learn industrial design there. If we are looking to be a manufacturing hub, if we are looking to be the powerhouse of many things for the coming years as a country, then this is where it's going to begin. So that's why I said it couldn't have come at a more strategic time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pinto. Very rightly said. that, we have actually, like, a lot of emphasis has been given to practical understanding of things, like it is conceptual understanding and how to implement not the learning, because that was a huge gap, and it is right across from school education to higher education. So children who have struggled with school years may not have to struggle in higher education now, because there is that continuity that is given in the document. So thank you so much for your views. I really appreciate it. And going to now Mrs. Kelkar. Mrs. Kelkar, the question for you is that, the NEP talks about no hard separations between, arts and sciences, between curricular and extracurricular activities, between vocational and academic streams. So how do you think this can be implemented in school education?
So many people, good evening once again. Earlier panelists also have been talking about them. Mrs. Amrita was talking about vocationalization from 6 to 8, and building on that, Dr. Gupta also spoke about the same. And I would say one step going further, it's not only the happiness, but it's knowing the vocational education, what it is. Okay, one point is the dropout rate will go down, because why do children drop out? One reason is they are not able to cope up with your pure sciences and pure mathematics. And secondly, their parents feel, what is the big point in learning some books? There is no need for that. In any case, you are going to take up some occupation very soon. So now when you have the vocalization of education, then you remove the boundaries between arts, science, between curricular, co-curricular, and between academics and vocation, you would find the children will come back to the school. That is one advantage we are going to have. Secondly, what I say is that there is, as you said, Rageshri, very rightly, there is mismatch between the jobs available and the people available. The blue collar jobs are available, but nobody wants to take up that. Mrs. Bhattacharya was saying that in Bengal, they all look for going for either engineering or medicine. Very rightly so. If your child doesn't get into that, hang yourself. That is what one should do. But that is not the thing really. Also, third thing I would say, there is something which is called aptitude and there is something which is called interest. So I may be having aptitude in maths and science, but I may have interest in music or dance somewhere. So why can't I choose another elective as music or dance? Why should I be taking physics, mathematics, chemistry, and biology so that my avenues are open either for medicine or engineering? That need not be. It should be the choice. And in CBSE, rightly, I think Mrs. Oja was saying that CBSE gives the choice in class 11 and 12. Of the 5 subjects, one is compulsory language. Second is either language or one academic group, group A they say. And in academic group, they have physics, chemistry, biology, biotechnology, philosophy, psychology, sociology, all such subjects. Music, dance also, Kathak also there. And then there is 3 other subjects, subject 3, subject 4, subject 5. In that, either you can take 3 of the academic subjects or 3 of the group S, they call. Group S is skill education. That is the vocationalization of education there. And there the choices are going to be web application, information technology, beauty and wellness. Maybe I want to drop out of education after class 12. I'm not good at going further education. My parents are not able to support me. If I do a course in beauty and wellness, I would easily be able to set up a spa somewhere. So why not that? So there need not be any boundaries between the art science, between the academics and co-curricular. We should allow the children, she was talking about allowing the children the choice. Yes, children not only will be happy, they will be successful. And you would talk about, everybody would say, how are we going to implement? Mrs. Neetu Tuteja was putting on the chat there, how are the teachers going to have, how are the schools going to have teachers? Yes, definitely. But then when I offered a course in political science, I found that my teacher had her major in political science, so I could offer the subject. Slowly and gradually, these children who are doing the vocation education, they are the ones who are going to be coming to your schools. If you say that there are no going to be hierarchies of primary, secondary, and PGT salaries there, and you would find that they would come to the school. Why not? And therefore, you would find that the vocations that you want to offer can be offered there. And you need not offer all of them. There are so many. You choose and pick and train your teachers to do that. Just now we were listening to people, they were double postgraduates and all. So one can start doing that. Why not? People out in other countries take up second graduation or second post-graduation. Why can't we also do the same thing? If we do that, we will not only be employable, but we will also serve the country. And that is how I feel that there need not be. But when the child wants to select certain course, the child should not be, because I find somebody dancing Kathak and I'm very impressed by that. That doesn't mean I should take Kathak. Or I feel that beauty and wellness is something which I would like to do. But the school and the child should sit together, find out the competency development of the child. 1, 2, should find out the content that the child is going to learn. 3, the institution and the child should find out the schedule of the time period. And 4, they should find out also the completion of the project. When are they going to do that? And then if we do that, rightly so, by all panelists were saying that employability will increase surely. So I don't find that implementation of no barrier, no separation is going to be big. How are we going to do that? We can easily do it. The collective will, like Dr. Gupta was saying, collective will from the principal, management, principal, coordinators, supervisors, and the teachers who are going to actually doing it, and the parents, the mindset has to change. Then we can.
Absolutely. You really hit the nail on the head by including parents as well, because they are equally responsible and they are equal stakeholders in this whole process. So yes.
If I were to tell you that my son is a barber, you are going to laugh at me that her son is a barber. Why not? If he's good at that, he should be doing it. But as a parent, I say everybody will laugh at me. So I don't want you to go to do a course in hairdressing. Why should that be?
Yeah, absolutely.
Child should choose what he likes to do.
Yes, absolutely. I think that is what the NEP is also trying to talk about. That it is going to open up avenues for children. So right now we try to look down on certain employment, but given if it is included within the system, so people will explore those, find out for themselves whether they enjoy doing those or not, and then take an informed decision instead of just compartmentalizing it and saying that we don't want to go for something like that. So that is really that was a challenge.
One participant, Sudha, was asking, is the NCERT coming out with the syllabus? Yes, of course, they will come out with the syllabus for all these courses also. I'm sure of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Dr. Pinto, yes, dignity of labor, that is absolutely creating that awareness. Thank you, Mrs. Kilka. Thank you so much for your views. Now, we will go to the last question, and that is with Mrs. Bhattacharya.
Not that we would like to listen to her.
Yes, Mrs. Bhattacharya, a lot of focus has been given to technology-driven education to assure preparedness during times like these. Do you think once the pandemic is over, we will see more of blended learning in line with the NEP? I think that is a very relevant question for today, and in the times that we are living in. So we have kept it for the last, so that so everything will be brought together.
Right. You're 100% right, and I think whatever I heard, what we can understand is that we cannot be stereotyped. Now we have to just open up and be different. And here I would just like to mention about an instance which I think is very relevant, and though it happened many years back. This was in the year 1983. My father got transferred, and I went to Mumbai. And let me tell you, I did 1 year here under West Bengal Council, and the other year was under the Maharashtra government. I had Bengali as one of the subject. And I'm mentioning this, that it's not that our country was not progressive even at that time. It was. I did Bengali. When I went to Bombay, they told me that I could get a Bengali teacher and also teach me, but digitization was not there. So how would I get a Bengali teacher and who would be teaching me online? So it was not there. So I did not take a Marathi. I took a French. And let me tell you again, here I'm mentioning about a teacher who made all the difference, because I was taught, all that was taught from class 7 onward until class 12. And that teacher made all the difference, because I could back the highest number in French because, and I give all credit to my teacher. So you see, teacher can make so much of difference to a class, and which is very important here. So two things, digitization was not there. So I took a French and the teacher made all the difference. Now coming to digitization, what happens? We have seen that, with COVID, all of us have jumped into this, digital training. Now, what benefits have we got? We have got many benefits, because here, again, we are talking about a child-centric learning. When I'm talking about child-centric learning, a child, always used to feel I'm a backbencher, and now I'm no more a backbencher. I have this screen in front of me, and, I can learn at my own pace. So I talk about this constructivism learning, you construct your own learning pace, and you become a self-directed learner, which is very important. And there have been research done where people have seen that when you do this blended learning, a child's achievement is much more. So even if the pandemic goes, there will be, this technology which will actually help us. And by 2030, we are saying in the whole world, we are going to have the young people, the highest number of young people. Now, if we have to bring all of these and, all of these students, and also increase our, this enrollment ratio, we have to reach out to the corner, of our country. And reaching out to the cornermost country, one is this learning, blended learning, or through technology or open, online courses. But definitely, everything that is said is not so easy, because, reaching out to so many people, we definitely need to have a content for it, because the content cannot be same. So we need to have a digital pedagogy that we are talking of. And for that, a teacher needs to be trained. A teacher needs to be trained. The student needs to be trained. The parent needs to be trained. So all of us have to come on the same, platform to use this technology to the fullest, and so that we can utilize it. And so there is also an infrastructural development that, all schools and colleges need to take care of. And plus, we are talking about a digital divide. So for that also, our government needs to see that 24 hours, yes, they have built up, this Swam and Diksha, they are very good platforms. But, reaching out to every person and, maybe using different modes, so that student can take the maximum benefit and learn. So they become, learners, which we call, self-organized learners they become. And definitely this is going to help us. And as I said, it will make you ready for with your 21st century skill, because digitization is something which is going to help us to be skilled. And it's going to be this is the future. I don't see anything without the technology. Technology is going to help us, and I think what our Prime Minister wanted, and he started off with technology, it is going to show the future path. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your views, Mrs. Bhattacharya. Rightly said. I think COVID has brought a digital transformation to the country, right? I mean, so absolutely, what none of us had really probably envisaged. So it has brought that change in the country, and in the right direction. I mean, if we take it in the right direction and we continue with the best practices that we have learned during this time, so that will be a great opportunity to make 21st century learners out of every child that we offer education to. So I think that's a great point, and we have to continue with the best practices that are that have been implemented during this time. So definitely. So technology is not going anywhere. I think it has come to stay.
No, because there are so many things. You can augmented learning, virtual learning, gaming theory, and they're going to help our children. Yes. So we cannot actually do away without the technology.
Yes. And as you also said that, I think it is for all of us, all the panelists did mention this, that, we are such a huge, diverse country, but the NEP has actually taken care of all the points, which are there in such a diverse country, and taken care of the best practices, the different boards, the international boards, everything. So together they have come up with a document that caters to all these segments, and the continuity that we needed in school education and higher education, the parity that we needed for different streams, like the equal importance that is given to each and every stream, the choice that is going to rest with the learners, And for the teachers, I mean, teaching has to be made aspirational. So that is something that the NEP really talks about, so which is great. So thank you, all of you. I mean, I think there's one question that has been asked repeatedly. So if anyone wants to take that up, that is, when is the NEP going to be implemented? And one more is that, what does professional development for teachers actually mean in the NEP? So these are the two questions that, if somebody would like to take that up. Yes, Mrs. Burman.
So I'll just talk about the continuous development of the teachers. I think that has been coming from a pure CBSE school I'm talking, and I think it's even better in the international schools. That's what I believe. Okay, maybe Snehal will be able to say better because they run a few international board schools. So for CBSE, I think they have been continuously doing a lot of training programs. Whenever there's anything new that's added, there's something happening. In fact, ever since the COVID has happened and online training, so they've been doing, for example, there's a physical education teachers training that is coming up. So that's one part. I also think now that's a lot for pure CBSE schools, and I would say those schools that are not really forward looking to take care of their own teachers, continuous professional development. There are also a lot of other platforms where I think the management, the principals should bring other people on board to do continuous professional development of their teachers. So I think it's the way you plan. The government is planning, you need to plan it on your own. So I think all good schools have got their plan in place, like us, and I'm sure all of us speaking here have got their plans ready. So I don't think that's a major fear at all.
Great.
It's the intent and the will to do it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And your next answer is 21, that is what people are looking at. But definitely, the government has to show us a path, because they have to work out many things, the framework. And maybe by September end, we will get some more guidelines as to how we can, look at the course of action. And the students who are going from class 8 to 9, probably they will be the ones, who will be actually affected by the 4 years that we are talking about, the secondary education.
Benefited the most.
Yes, so not the present class 9, but the present class 8 who will be going to class 9, they will be the ones who will be starting off. And there will be also an age, which will actually affect, because some of the schools are having students who are 5+ and going to class 1. So now this 5 years that is coming for pre-primary and primary. So now it's going to make 6+ who will be going to class 1. So there, I think a little bit of overlapping, which will happen in 21.
And I think I want to add in that, since she very rightly, Bratuti, mentioned the class 1, there's something, again, I'm sure all of us has read it, very interesting, where there's a 3 months preparatory course for children moving into class 1. So especially, I think in the government schools, it's really needed, because many children are coming into class 1 for the first time. So they're going to be first time learners in class 1. So the 3-month course, I think, is another very brilliant thing that they have introduced. The other thing I wanted to add, that there are different parts of the NEP, and the implementation is also going to be, there in different years. So till 2040, they want to complete it's for higher education. Till 2035, if I'm not mistaken, they want to complete it for school education. So I think it's just a policy. The implementation and the complete directives on how it's going to happen is going to unfold with time.
Yes. It's just a direction, and it will take time, it's not going to happen in a year's time.
Yeah. It's going to be phased.
To add to the CPD part of what Amrita was talking, if you see in the ICSE schools, we have cell meetings that happen across the nation. State board schools have meetings, and the good thing about the Cambridge and the IB is they're open to having not just their own educators, but educators from the national boards who would want to learn, say, the Cat 1 training, who want to learn more about what it involves, similarly in the CAI. So the openness to learn, the idea is to be a lifelong learner. And if you want to learn, you will learn. You will find ways, you'll find resources to learn. And if nothing else, COVID has taught us that. I mean, there was always that big digital divide between the seniors and the junior teachers, and all of that is
True.
what you got to do because it is for the sake of the students. And I think this has been an interesting thing. 50 hours, if you go to see, most schools do beyond 50 hours. Start and mid and end, those CPTs already happened. But I think what will help now is having a framework to do purposeful training, diagnostic, need-based training in your subjects for the learners. And I think this is a good direction that it offers. So yeah, there's so much more to do. That. Thank you for letting us be a part of this. We're really grateful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really, like on behalf of Collins Learning, really want to thank each one of you for being a part of this panel today and sharing your insights. We are really, I think all of us benefited from that. So, and let us see how we can make education a truly holistic experience for our learners in the wake of NEP 2020. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the participants. Thank you for all the people watching on Facebook. So thank you for being with us. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Yeah,
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you.